Hello, welcome to yet another episode of the Abundance of Podcast. If this is your very first time here, Karibu Sana. Like I always like to say, I want to believe and hope that by the time you're done listening to this episode, that you will have made a decision to join us and be a part of us here at the Abundance of Community. So yes, my good name is Sharon Bye, and today I have a lot of energy. I have a lot of energy and psych because a few days ago I turned 25 and I can already imagine you applauding and screaming. But yes, I turned 25 not like some 2 days ago. Actually, no, it's just yesterday. I don't know why I'm saying a few days ago. Oh my days, it's just yesterday at the time of recording this episode. So yes, I have been 25. And yes, it has been a very interesting day. Actually, yesterday was a very interesting day for me. And I got a lot of questions about, a lot of people kept asking me, so how does it feel being 25? How does 25 feel? And so many other questions. And this came from a place of our previous episode where we were talking about quarter life crisis. And I remember I shared this in the episode where I was talking about how, I am turning 25, or rather I have already turned 25, and there's a lot of fears, a lot of things really that have been bugging me about, being 25 and about life. And I kept thinking, oh my days, there's so much that I still want to do. There's so much that I want to achieve. And there have been moments when I felt like I was a failure. And if you've listened to that episode, you remember when I was talking about the diary that I found, that I wrote when I was 22 years old, about the things that I wanted to achieve when I was 25. And I just realized that I have only achieved one. I think it was a list of about 7 things, and I have only achieved one. And I really felt, oh my days. I mean, and some of the things that I had written on there, I kept seeing them in other people. Like I kept seeing my friends or just people around me achieve the things that I wanted to achieve by 25. So, I mean, it has just been, it was, how do I say this? It was such a bittersweet day for me, just turning 25. It gave me a lot to think about, a lot that, of course, I had already been thinking about. And, for some reason, I kept thinking about how it's just a season of transition. And this is something that I have talked about before in an episode with Stride the Podcast, by the way. Shameless plug, be sure to go listen to Stride the Podcast. You'll really, really love what wisdom. Actually, his name is Wisdom, but I didn't intend it to be a pun, but you'll really love what Wisdom has in store for you on that particular episode, or actually on that particular podcast. I'm going to leave a link to that on the show notes. But yes, just thinking about quarter life crisis, I've been thinking about how, it's just a season of transition for me because I am transiting into a new season. I'm not sure exactly what kind of season this is going to be for me. I'm not sure, the kind of lessons, the kind of blessings, the kind of even tears and pain, because life does happen, that this season is going to bring. But it's just a season of transition. And I remember when I was talking about transition in that episode with Wisdom, when we were talking about handling transitions, especially, I think the context of that episode was, handling transitions from a place of just coming out of, a school and now into the workplace or whatever it is, and what that brings. I remember there's so much that I had shared on, and I really wanted to reiterate on some of these things today, right here on this particular episode. This is going to be a really short episode. I wanted to just take a short break and really think about what I want for me in this particular season. So I decided to just talk about transition for a few minutes and just share this celebration with you, because at the end of the day, you guys are my community, you guys are my family, and I love you who is listening to this particular episode. Yes, I do love you, and I am rooting for you no matter what season you are in right now. Maybe you don't know me, maybe we've never met, maybe you've just met me on Spotify or Apple Podcast, whatever it is, but I want you to know that I'm rooting for you, that you have a community right here at the Abundant Self podcast. And we exist, to inspire you to be the absolute best version of yourself. And most importantly, to embrace a life of abundance. Someone was asking me the other day what the foundation of this podcast is, and it's always at the top of my mind, and that is John 10:10, where Jesus is saying that I came that you may have life and have it more abundantly. But many of us really do not understand what that means. What does it mean to live an abundant life, to live a full life, right? You can have it on a t-shirt, you can post it on social media as a caption, as a hashtag, but do we really understand what it means to live an abundant life? Yeah. So I'm rooting for you, and I really do hope that, everything works out for you, whatever season you're in, that whatever lessons you're receiving, whatever the season you're in is bringing to you, that you will embrace it and that you will see it as a means to work out for your good. So like I said, today I just wanted to talk about transitions because, like I said, I'm currently in a season of transition, and this is something that we all experience. One way or another, we will always find ourselves we'll always find ourselves in a situation where it's time for us to move on, to move into a new season, to move away from an old mindset, for example, and transit into a new one. And there's so many challenges that come with that. There's so many things that make transitions difficult. And if I can remember our weekly quote, the one that I posted on our Instagram page by Chimamanda, who, by the way, is one of my favorite African authors, she talks about how most of the time we create a script in our heads or in our minds, and then we force ourselves to actually live according to that script when we should just let ourselves live. And when I talked about quarter life crisis in the previous episode, like as I was sharing, is that there's so many things that I had intended for myself at 25. There's so many things that I wanted to do and achieve and become at 25. But like I said, I've only been able to achieve one. And you see, at that particular moment, I was just thinking about, oh my days, I'm a failure. Oh my days, these are so many things that I haven't achieved. I mean, I have really failed myself as an individual when it hasn't been true, right? Because there's so many things that I have achieved right now that weren't even on that list. For example, starting a podcast. Who would have thought that I would have been a podcaster at 25 years old? Right? And this is such a great achievement for me, to be able to just think about how I can add value in the lives of other people, and just being able to see that happening, like being able to bring that into fruition, into reality. I mean, sometimes I'm even thinking about it right now. I'm like, oh my word, I am a podcaster. I said podcaster. I am a podcaster, so it's just, that was not in my plan. At the time, actually, when I was creating that list, I was just a blogger. I was only creating content on my blog, Chabai by Span. But I had the idea of a podcast, but I didn't see myself. For some reason, I hadn't seen myself there yet. So like I said, sometimes we create scripts in our minds. And I don't know what script you have created for yourself. That maybe you need to have done this and this and this. That maybe you need to do this, this and this. But at the end of the day, it is also important for us to learn how to just be. How to just let God guide us, how to just let God align us to his purpose, to his will, to the desires that he has for us. And I remember one thing, a prayer that a friend of mine made for me yesterday is, I remember we were talking over the phone, and she said that, I liked it when she said that, I know that there are certain desires that you have, there are desires that I have, desires of my heart. And she said, I hope you also get to just surrender them to God. I think I can't remember what she said word for word, but just surrendering these desires to God, and just letting him align these desires that I have, align them to what he also desires for me. Because sometimes you can want something and maybe it's not even intended for you. And that's even the thing with our scripts. Sometimes we create scripts in our minds, and maybe that is not the script that, God has intended for us. And then when we do not live according to that script, then we start beating ourselves up. We start thinking we are failures. We start thinking, that we are not good enough. And yet that is not the life we have been created to live. Right? So one thing that makes transitions really difficult is wanting to stick to that script, wanting to stick to that plan. And I know I have shared this before, even in the very first episode when I was sharing my story, and how I had already planned out my life, that I was going to graduate, get an internship at a certain organization, they absorbed me. I had a clear plan. I had a clear plan of, how I wanted things to turn out. And it's so interesting that even this past week, I was sitting with someone and they were telling me that I need to plan better. I was getting a review done, and the person doing my review was like, I think you need to plan better, So sometimes you make plans, but then those plans, they're not even right for you. Just because you have a plan doesn't mean that, that plan is going to be executed according to the way you want it. And so many other things. So transitions become difficult when we really want to stick to the plan. And if there's something about life, something that I have come to learn, and something that is really difficult, is just learning to trust God, learning to surrender, learning to just, yes, you have your plans, presenting them to God and saying, okay, God, this is what I want to do. This is what I desire. You do your thing. Most of the time we make our plans and then we want to be the ones to see it into fruition. And maybe that's not right. That's not it. That's not what we are meant to do. And then setting unrealistic standards, having high expectations. Just setting unrealistic standards and expectations. And this is something that I was seeing in that diary, because later on I went back and I looked at the things that I wrote down, and I remember asking myself, what was informing these dreams? What was informing these ambitions? Because some of them were really unrealistic standards, unmanaged expectations. Right? It's just what was informing all of this. It wasn't really from a place of maybe intentionality, from a place of knowing, okay, this is what I want to, this is why I want to achieve such and such a thing. Most of the time, it was actually, when I looked at that list, some of the things were because either I had seen other people do it. I had seen someone who had maybe bought a car or bought a home or done this and that. It wasn't from a place of, why do I need to achieve this? What value am I adding? Like I said, even in the previous episode, sometimes we have made our lives so much about ourselves that we forget that we are not here to exist for ourselves. Literally, we have been placed on this earth so that He can fulfill His purposes, His kingdom purposes through us, And I remember someone was saying that the reason you exist is so that even someone else can experience God's love, can experience God's goodness through you. So most of the time we find that we make our lives so much about us that we forget that our lives are not our own. And that is something that many of us do not want to accept. We're always thinking about me, myself, and I. What is in it for me? Right? So that is another thing that makes transitions difficult, because at the end of the day, every season of transition usually brings, it exposes those areas that we are too familiar, too just comfortable, that we do not want to move away from. Because transitions will demand change, will demand you to either reinvent yourself, will demand you to change the way you think, to change your mindset. And maybe this is something that may have been happening in the background, and it is what is preparing you for that season of transition. Because sometimes you find that, yes, it's time for you to move into a new season, but then you're not ready for it. You're not ready for it because you still have the same mindset, you still have the same thinking capacity, or you're still entertaining the same habits, the same worldviews. And I remember we talked about this in a previous episode. We were talking about how new wine cannot be placed in old wineskin. We cannot expect to move forward, to transit into seasons of growth, into season of being uplifted, or whatever it is you might want to call it, if you're still embracing the same old habits, same old mindsets that have been holding us back. And then that again takes us back to the episode we were doing on self-sabotage, right? Because somehow all these things are tied together. So how do I intend to cope? Very many people, like I said, have been asking me about how is 25? How are you finding 25? And I'm just saying, come on, guys, it's just been 24 hours. Or it's just been 12 hours. I have been 25, rather. Someone was telling me that right now I'm beginning my 26th year. So I have been 25. They were even saying, I don't know why you're scared of turning 25, yet you have been 25. You have been on this earth for 25 years. So you have been 25. There's absolutely nothing to be scared about. But then again, of course, that looks good on paper because, putting that number, it's like putting a stamp on it that, yes, I am 25. And there's so much. I mean, it's a whole quarter. It's a whole quarter, you guys. But I'm really excited about it. I was posting on my Instagram the other day saying that, dear 25, I think I like you a lot. And not because I expect a lot of good things. It's because I just expect to grow. I expect to be a better person because, again, like I said, I'm transitioning into a new season. And there's a lot that this season is going to demand from me that I need to be ready for. So how do you do that? And I think I even mentioned this in the episode that I did with Wisdom on Stride the podcast, where I was saying, and I was talking about how we need to be able to have, just forward thinking, where you know that you have a season of transition coming up, you need to be ready for it, right? It's possible to just have that forward vision, that forward thinking to say that this time is coming. This time, or there's a season that is coming for me that is going to demand me to carry myself in a certain way. And I need to be ready for that. And I remember it's just a thought that came to my mind at that particular moment. And I'm just thinking about, for me right now, I'm 25. What do I need to do? I remember the other day I was writing down, after my review, I wrote down some 3 questions. And one of them was, how do I communicate better? How do I become a better communicator? How do I become a better planner? How do I become self-aware? How do I become really an effective and productive person? How do I dominate my space as a thinkfluencer? Or as a whoever it is that I may want to call myself? How do I become a better person and the person that God intends of me to be? Because, like I said, I'm not here on my own accord. I am not alive on my own accord. I mean, God, when He created me, He had a plan for my life. There's so many things that He wanted to achieve through me. So how do I ensure that I am ready for that season? Whatever that season is, how do we ensure we're ready for that? And like I said, number 1 is just finding ways to reinvent. Find ways to reinvent yourself. I think, like I said, new season will need us to embrace new mindsets. Will need us to embrace just new kind of worldviews, or whatever it is you might want to call it. So how do you reinvent yourself? How do you position yourself to be ready for whatever season you're transitioning into? Are there habits you need to change? Are there communities you need to embrace? What do you need to let go of? And that is something a friend of mine was asking me and telling me just yesterday when we were talking over the phone. What do you need to let go of, that might hinder you from transitioning or that might hinder you from fully showing up for the next season that life is bringing your way, right? And then the other thing is just finding a support system. And that is something that I am really grateful for. I think this 25 years, I have looked back and I have looked at the kind of relationships that I have formed. I have looked at the kind of communities, the kind of support systems that I have built around myself. And some of them are very unexpected. Some of them are very accidental. But it's just seeing how God works in the background. Sometimes God's work doesn't have to be so pronounced, so in your face. You literally just have to sit down and just have that hindsight. And you'll see that all that time, it was never your efforts. It was never even about how good you are, how intelligent, how smart you are, how well learned you are. It was just God putting you in the right spaces at the right time, placing the right people in your life. And that is something that I'm truly grateful for. I am grateful for my community, for my friends, for my family, for the kind of lessons, the kind of insights, the kind of experiences that I've gotten from them. So getting into transition, just think about what support system do you need? What quality of what is the quality of the support system that you need for you at that particular moment? Because it's always said over and over again that, you find that you're moving into a certain season or you're getting into a new season, and really there are people who are not meant to be with you in that new season. There are communities that you might have to let go of because their season is over. Whatever you needed to get from them, whatever lessons, whatever mistakes, whatever it is you might want to call it, that maybe you needed to experience while with them or through them, is already over, and it's time for you to move on. So find a support system. Be ready and flexible enough to learn and adapt to the new environment and season that you're walking into. You always, sometimes it can be hard, of course, to know that there's a new season coming and you need to be ready for it. But somehow, it's just be ready to adapt, be ready to change, be malleable. I think that is something that life has also taught me. Sticking to the plan, life is not linear. Life is not a straight line. There's going to be a lot of curves, a lot of bends, a lot of... You're going to get battered and bruised. And that is why you need to be malleable. You need to be able to adapt. Flexible, be ready to adapt into the new environment that you're walking into. And then also finally go easy on yourself. And that is something that is so hard. We are always the people who are beating ourselves up the most. Like myself, every time I have told someone that I'm turning 25, they have really been excited for me. My mom was even telling me today that I'm now a silver jubilee. I've hit my silver jubilee year. And it's so positive, but for you as an individual at that particular moment, for me, I'm just thinking, time is running. In fact, I've been saying now that I'm 25, clearly 30 is right at the door. 30 is right there. 30 is just there saying, honey, I'm here. You will be 30 any minute now, any second now. But you need to go easy on yourself. New season will demand for new lessons, new challenges, and it's okay. It is absolutely okay if you don't get it right the first time. Often when you're in that season of transition, like I said, for me, there are so many things I want to achieve right now as 25. I've already started planning, what I want to achieve when I get to 30. And now looking at where I started from at 23 when I was writing down my goals for 25. And right now, I am a totally new and different person. And I actually like the person that I am right now. And right now, I am even... I'm even showing more grace and more love to myself intentionally, because I know that just because I have said that this is what I want, just because this is my dream, this is my goal, doesn't mean I'm going to get it. And it's absolutely okay. It's absolutely okay. Someone was asked to give an attribute about me at work this past week, and they said that I'm a very resilient person. I looked at this person and I said, okay, resilience. Resilience. Am I really a resilient person? Because resilience means that even when things don't work out, it's still okay to try them out again. And of course, even in this context, if things don't work out, it's just going back to the drawing board and saying, am I doing the right thing? Because sometimes things may not be working out because you're not doing the right thing. So when they said resilience, I was like, wow, okay, I am a resilient person. So I remember telling myself, I hope I'm resilient in the right things. Right? And then finally, just surrender. Just let it go. Trust God. Trust God, and trust me, I am going to be listening to this episode myself, because all the things that I'm sharing with you, like I always like to say, it's not that I have figured it out, I have mastered it. Trust me, going easy on myself, I am my most harsh critic. I judge myself so very harshly compared to even how the world judges me. And that is something that I've come to learn. So even going easy on myself, that is something I need to literally learn, right? Finding ways to reinvent myself, creating a support system, trusting God. I was telling my friend over the phone, I know she's listening to this episode, the number of times I've mentioned her. The only thing remaining is for me to say her name. But anyway, I was telling her yesterday over the phone that sometimes the days are just praying and telling God, okay, teach me how to trust you, because I do not know how to do this. I want to trust you, but I also want to be the one holding the wheel. I want to be the one taking the wheel. I want my plan to go through. So even being in that place of surrender, being in that place of letting it go, and saying that, yes, this is the plan, this is the script I have for my life, but it doesn't have to go exactly how I want it. And just allowing God to move through you, I think is one of the greatest and most difficult things that one can learn while in transition. So yeah, that is basically it for today's episode. I didn't want to say much. I don't know why, but every time I get on here and I say that it's going to be a short episode, somehow it's never a short episode. But yes, this is me sharing my birthday blessings to you. I don't know what season of transition you're in, but just like me, I hope that we can learn all these things together, that we can be ready for those seasons of transitions, because what the seasons demand of us is growth, and growth is a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful thing. It might not be comfortable. It might suck, like we talked about putting ourselves out there. It might suck, but really, it is necessary. It is necessary. Transitions need to happen. We cannot be in the same place forever. I couldn't be 24 forever. I will not be 25 forever. It can only happen once. And it's just important that in that moment of transition, I think, is just sit down and look back at your previous season. What are you going to, what are the things you have learned? What are you going to be carrying forward to your new season? What are you leaving behind? And those are the same questions that I'm going to be answering myself, even as I turn on a new leaf. So yes, that is pretty much it for today's episode. I really, really do appreciate you. Thank you so much for always being here, tuning in to these episodes. And I do hope, and it is my prayer, really it is my prayer, that these episodes are adding value to your life. I have also left a link on the show notes for a feedback form. I have been collecting feedback about, what you think about the podcast. We are almost turning 1, you guys. We are almost turning 1. And I really want to keep showing up for you the best possible way that I can. And thank you to those who have taken the time to respond, given me their feedback. So be sure to let me know. And also feel free to let me know what you want to hear more of here on the podcast. Yes, that is pretty much it. Like I always like to say, always, always, always remember that if you remember absolutely nothing, nothing else from today's episode or any other episode really, do not forget that you have been created to have life and life in abundance, and that I am rooting for you always. Bye-bye.